Welcome, thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundell, for the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the mighty Mars, returning home to the sign of Aries, which begins on the 30th of April and goes on for just under 6 weeks through to the 9th of June. But as Mars arrives in Aries, it forges a once-in-a-lifetime. In fact, it's not since 220 years ago that Mars in Aries has linked to Pluto in Aquarius. So this is a stunning strategic influence, but certainly in terms of our personal situations, as Mars has made its way through the sign of Pisces, which is the sign of culmination and of endings since March the 23rd, connected with Saturn in week 2 of April, and with Neptune in the last week of April, energy has been very low. So we have an opportunity now to fire ourselves up. It's a once in a lifetime spark, and we can go. If you're new to my channel, thank you so much for joining us. This is very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please do share them. Returning visitor, all your views and interactions are truly appreciated. Now, I have been mentioning that a lot of people watch my channel and are not subscribers. If you're one of them, please help to support my channel and do subscribe. And also, do press that bell notification symbol, because every time I drop a video, you should get an alert from YouTube. Also, if you'd like to get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, please click on the link below, or you can just go to www.patrickarundell.com/subscribe. This gives you an opportunity to see what's going on for you daily with your ascendant or sun, but also I provide an overview of the key planetary influence of each day, and that provides a lot of overall perspective. I'm also a consulting astrologer. I do lots of one-to-ones. To find out what people say about working with me, why not check out my testimonials? I don't alter these as they come in, I share them as is. So on the screen now, I'm showing the event chart of Mars's return to Aries based on a solar perspective. So the ascendant essentially is at 0 degrees Aries, and that, of course, is where Mars is. Now, the first house in any chart, has a very Martian influence, because it's all about where we're going to showcase our individuality. Now, part of that is embracing our ego in a positive way. And because Mars has been making its way through Pisces since the 23rd of March, that's a very ego-denying part of its journey. So essentially what it's saying, even though you can see that Neptune is still very close, it's only 1 degree and 5 minutes away, that we need to shrug off some of the doubts and introspection and low vitality that perhaps have been more prominent. I feel that Mars moving through Pisces may have also brought up quite a lot of old issues, and not always in a particularly easy way. So there may have been some extremes of emotion, at times a lot of tears, at other times anger that's been held in for far too long may have come up, perhaps even just in terms of irritability. But if you have been suffering with a lot of migraines recently, and particularly as Mars aligned with Saturn in week 2 of April, it wouldn't be a surprise. Mars in the 12th house can sometimes tease into the open the issues that we feel that we've dealt with. This could be past hurt, separations, rejections, where people have disappointed us hugely, and we feel that we've dealt with all that, we've let it all go. But it's amazing, I feel, how much the body holds emotion, that gestalt. So Mars has a way of teasing that energy out. So what we can do with Mars moving home into Aries, of course it also is the co-regent of the sign of Scorpio, but this is the first zodiac sign, so we're beginning a new journey. Now, I was reading a thread on Facebook recently where there was a couple of astrologers really going at it because they saw the purpose of Mars in very different ways. Well, one person was very trenchant about his views that Mars was a lot to do with anger and essentially a troublemaker. And of course it is known as a malefic. It's known as the lesser malefic. And of course when it joined up with Saturn in week 2, we had the two malefics together, which did create a lot of limitation. But Mars, for me, is about action. It is about initiation, particularly in Aries. It's about just listening to our instincts and not analysing things so much. All the soul searching, even the navel gazing that we've done as Mars has gone through Pisces, which is great if we've been involved in looking after someone who's poorly or helping someone in a healing context, or if you are someone who works as a psychic, Mars may have been a real asset to you. But I feel generally for us, it's quite a tricky transition. So Mars moving into Aries is a new beginning. But that new beginning is really blessed by the role of Pluto. And you can see Pluto at 2 degrees and 6 minutes. But look at the moon. The moon's very close to Pluto, one of the most intense combinations you could probably have in astrology. What are they saying? They're saying essentially it's about the future, it's about the network, it's about the collective. It's not so much just about I, it's about we. But hold on, I've said that Mars is linked to the ego. Yes, to a degree, but if no one had the courage to take the first step forwards, nothing would ever be created in life. So Mars in itself is really celebrating the fact that we even exist, because as humankind has evolved, there's been all sorts of threats and challenges, whether it's the environment, whether it's predators, whether it's been a lack of food, and somehow or another we've had to fight for that existence. So that aggression isn't always a bad thing. So when we put Mars and Pluto together, Mars in house 1, new starts, or re-energizing ongoing strands, and we connect it to Pluto in the very principled sign of Aquarius, and we're seeing a big shift about how we all collectively connect through Pluto. What we're going to get here is a clear understanding of our long-term aim, Pluto. We're going to have a huge amount of inner motivation. If we are working with other people, we can do so in a balanced way between our ego and theirs. But also because the moon's in the mix, we get a nice balance between that raw, rather feisty energy of Mars, and the moon in the detached Aquarius can just let that air come in. And of course, fire needs air. So the moon is it's oxygenizing the position of Mars in an absolutely splendid way. So this is really going to feel like something that's been blocked or stopped or inhibited, or we've been waiting to get the green lights on, can explode forwards. How absolutely exciting is that? Now I'm just going to show you the event chart from a Placidus viewpoint based on Greenwich because of the primary meridian, and the moon and Pluto are in house 4 and Mars in 6, and Neptune therefore is in the same house, whereas in the event chart solar, Neptune stays in 12 and Mars moves into 1st. What can we take from this? Well, I think it's saying that the energy and the thrust that we can take from this still can be to reform how we live and how we organise ourselves, but also be particularly conscious of what we're eating and drinking, because I think we're becoming much more aware that there's a lot of additives, a lot of preservatives, there's a lot of chemicals in all the products we use within our homes. And if we use the energy and the desire of Mars and the reforming energy of Pluto, then maybe around our home and practical situations is another area that we can make progress over the next near to 6 weeks. Now, the other thing, of course, is that each zodiac sign has 3 decans of 10. The first 10 degrees of Aries, the sub-rulership is still Mars. The second is the Sun. The Sun's exalted in the sign of Aries, which is amazing. And then we have the third decan, and that third decan is sub-ruled by Jupiter. So to the 13th of May, Mars is going to be making its way through that first 10 degrees, that first decan, to the 27th of May, the second, featuring the Sun. And then from then through to the 9th of June, it is going to be Jupiter. But what about the upcoming aspects? Well, this angle between Mars and Pluto actually started to develop on the 29th of April, and it's going to go on through to the 7th of May. So we can, go all in on the exact aspect, which is the 3rd of May, but I think it's really important to see that this is an aspect which is really giving us the chance to think about our vision, our future, our connections. That's all Pluto and the moon in Aquarius. But Mars gives us that absolute passionate power and thrust to really go for it. If you need to be more assertive at this time, go for it. If you are feeling that you want to revitalize your physicality, and there may be some changes you could make around diet and nutrition based on the natal chart, go for it. Yes, we can all feel a lot more impatient in the weeks to come, but I think the great thing is that we're going to be much more in the mood to throw off the sloth that really has affected us over the last 6 weeks. Now, we do have a very important conjunction with the North Node, which starts to build up from the 19th of May and goes on to the 22nd, and it's exact on the 18th. Let's think about the principles of the North Node. The North Node, the point of destiny, is where we're all collectively being guided to at the moment. And we're being really encouraged to get in touch with our individuality in a positive way. So not just be dominated by some of the agendas that are pulsating around, to have the confidence to be a bit different. So if we apply Mars to that, that can help that process. One of my big things is that I will not wear logos. I've always been like this. Why would I want to advertise another brand's? It's nothing to do with me being an astrologer, but it's just not my nature. I'm me. Why would I want to promote that? But of course, this is something that's hugely popular with a lot of people. But Mars with the North Node gives us a lot of encouragement to dare to be different. Now, we also have Mars combining with Chiron, and that's exact on the 29th of May. That's a very tender combination in a way, because Chiron often is where, of course, we can shine, help people hugely. Depends on what zodiac sign it's in, but critically what house it's in, and of course what other influences feed to it. And Mars applying to Chiron could give us a little bit of a push if we have got an area of life that we don't feel we can manifest ourselves, or we don't get heard or seen as much as we want, to raise our head above the parapet. So let's think of Mars in terms of an archetype of bravery, of daring, of endeavour, of new beginnings, or recharging the things that are ongoing that really, really are important to us. So that aspect to Pluto and the moon is incredible. Do embrace it. Remember, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, but also it isn't going to occur for a very, very long time again. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces and give you a flavour of what you can expect in terms of your ascendant, sun or the moon for this next near to 6 week period. But if you would like to ascend above a zodiac astrology and understand the power of your natal chart, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place, I can produce for you your personal life roadmap report. This will give you searing insights into what's guided you in this life so far, a much more intimate understanding of the patterns. In my special package of 30% off, you can also get your moving transits in the sky for a year, interacting with your totally unique blueprint. If you know your tropical astrology already and are very intimate with it, why not consider my draconic package? This is based on your soul karmic astrology. We move the North Node to the vernal point. It shifts the chart around a lot. The planets stay in the same houses and have the same relationships or aspects to one another, but can shift remarkably. My sun in tropical Aquarius, my sun in draconic Gemini. My moon in tropical Aquarius, my moon in draconic Cancer. And the same package, you get your draconic life roadmap report, but also you get your 12 months transits. What is draconic? Draconic is the roots of our being. When we come into this world, that's the essence of who we are. And essentially the tropical chart is where our potential lays. If we think about the draconic as the roots of our being, the tropical is the fruit that comes from the tree, from this life's efforts. Please check it out below. So Aries, Mars return into your sign is absolutely fantastic news. If we think back over the last 6 weeks, because there had been such a lot of energy centered on your sign, I think some of the commentary that you may have been picking up on has been showcasing the potential for you to really embrace your star quality, and that has been there. But we can't ignore the big picture, and the big picture is that Saturn has been in your 12th house for over a year. And because Mars has been in this area for the last 6 weeks, from the 23rd of March, as much as you may have made some moves forwards with the total solar eclipse, with the help of Venus, to some degree with the North Node, maybe even with Mercury, despite its retrograde, it may have felt that those steps forwards haven't quite got the purchase or the traction you would really like. If you want to supercharge a plan that's really important to you in terms of your future, the link with Pluto in your 11th house, which is all about that long-term plan. Pluto's about change, and also it's about your higher hopes. But Mars in your own sign is enabling you, or will enable you, if you seize the opportunity, to put some of the doubts, some of the insecurities, some of the low vitality to one side and really seize the moment. So it's vital that you set your intentions as Mars moves into your sign, because if you do, and you really take this opportunity seriously, something really can start to manifest in a very, very potent way for you, something that's fresh and new. It may be that you have doubted yourself a little bit more than is normal. Maybe you need to remind yourself of your individual qualities, of not being quite so concerned about what other people think. It's about action. It's about desire. It's about self-belief. It's about physical energy, but it is also about risk, in the sense of believing that it's better to go for something and live in the moment and feel alive than live in a state of slight denial because of how something might not turn out exactly as we want. So this is a real primary moment of the whole year, and I'm truly excited for you. So do grab this opportunity with both hands. So Taurus, when it comes to your professional situation, there may be a past skill, experience or person that you always had an appreciation for, but could come back into your thinking in a much more potent way now, but particularly in terms of how you connect to the wider world, because that's the role that Pluto's playing. And some think about your work, your bigger relationship, your responsibilities, obligations, the part of your situation where you provide a lead or connect with people who are leaders can be revolutionized by dipping into an accumulation of lots of knowledge and maybe contacts to reset that professional hopes. But it also could be the case that maybe over the next 6 weeks you do need to come to terms with some elements of your situation from your past. And it could be some painful elements. It may be parts of your life history which had some separations or rejections or some challenges that weren't easy. It may have been to do with some kind of accident you had. And maybe you'd rationalised these past events and felt that you'd put them into a peaceful place within you. And it's possible you did. But Mars going through the 12th house can have an uncomfortable ability to rake up stuff from the past. So I feel that if your mood is a little bit up and down over this next 6 weeks, it is important to try to understand what the root of that is. And it may be that something is still quite active, a resentment, a bitterness, a rejection that needs revisiting with the skills, knowledge and experience you've now got, because you can look at it in a fresh way and release it for your greater good. So Gemini, with the big cluster of energy that we had in Aries, the total solar eclipse, Venus, Mercury, your ruler, but it was retrograding, of course, as well. But the North Node and Chiron, all that 11th house energy was seeing you connect and network and interact. And it may be that you were taking a leading role within those connections because of Saturn and Mars being in your 10th house. And since March the 23rd, Mars in the 10th house certainly has potentially helped you to raise your profile, but it also may have made you much more aware of the restraints and restrictions in terms of your work or the expectations other people have of you, or just thinking about your role in life. And of course what's happened is that big posse of energy has all moved forwards into your 12th house, and including the conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus, which is seeing you thinking an awful lot about the more psychological dimension. And even though there may have been the contacts, what you're more concerned about is the quality of the contacts, not the quantity. But what Mars does moving into Aries is just reinvigorate and reignite the better parts of those connections. So if you have gone through that sparkling phase and then just withdrawn a little bit and been spending time on your inner work, healing, perhaps helping others to heal, Mars moving into your 11th house, this is the furnace Mars will provide for your longer term hopes. Now Mars of course can be about us as individuals, but the 11th house is an interesting place for Mars because we're not quite so caught up with our ego identification here. It's much more to do with collaboration and cooperation. But that doesn't mean to say you need to stop being you. So you can be individual, but still find points of commonality with others. Mars in the 11th house. But the link with Pluto suggests that if there are people that you share a credo with, a higher purpose, whether it is to do with education, whether it is to do with politics or philosophy, or an enjoyment of history or culture or ancestry, all these things can be really exciting for you over the next 6 weeks. And as much as you've shown that you can be very assertive of late, there may have been some times when it felt a little lonely. And it's possible with every personal planet moving forwards into Taurus that you have been relinquishing some connections. The connections that you did make with that Aries season, the ones that were really important, can be rekindled in such an intense, powerful, but critically positive way over the next 6 weeks. So Cancer, Taurus season is really making you much more aware of the things that inspire you, but that includes the people. Your network could be going through some subtle changes. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to fall out with anyone, but there could be some new people coming in that you're finding to really give you a great deal of appreciation of looking at things in fresh ways. But don't underestimate within your network, friendship and connections, just how much you can be a leader. And that is what Mars is going to bring to you over the next 6 weeks. because your sign is a cardinal sign. There are 4 cardinal signs: Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn. They're known as the cardinal quadrants, and it's all about action. So Mars moving right to the top of your chart on cardinal quadrant 1, the vernal point, is really going to spark within you a much greater appreciation of how you want to raise your profile, gain recognition, show more confidence to assert yourself, strut your stuff over the next 6 weeks in quite an amazingly impactful way. And because Pluto's in the mix, if you are in business and you feel that you are deserving of a bigger role, of a bigger salary, of more responsibility, or you want to develop your own business interests in a way which helps you to express your talents and gain greater recognition, the next 6 weeks is a fantastic time to do it. The key, however, is to stay mindful of the energy in Taurus, because having Venus there suggests that diplomacy will still be very important to your ambitions. And ironically, because Mars connects brilliantly to Pluto, but Venus is clashing with Pluto, you can't try too hard. So if there is an opportunity you see, or there are people that you can work with, collaboration will be very important, and you can demonstrate your leadership talent step by step, so you don't have to dominate a situation in order to end up being the authority in that situation. So it's a case of essentially believing in yourself, your inner qualities, and slowly but surely people over this next 6 weeks will become much more conscious of the quality and the talents you have to offer. So Leo, at the present time, there's a big gathering of energies in your 10th house, which is about success, goals, ambitions, but also our professional interactions and how we connect to the world at large. Venus is there, suggesting charm will get you everywhere over the next few weeks, but it is being conditioned by the energy of Pluto, very much about politics around relationships. So whether it's personal or professional, if there is someone that you're finding a bit tricky to deal with, that energy may be manifesting itself right now. But then Mars comes along, joining up with Aries, which shares your fellow fire triplicity. And here, because Mars is a planet that you have a strong connection to, here, this can really give you a much greater sense of urgency, and also, dare I say it, even a bit more ruthlessness, because you've had Neptune in your 8th house, which has been clouding your close connections since 2012, then Saturn over the last year, which may have been conditioning your financial situation. In other words, you may have been dependent on working closely with other people or one other person, or just your long-term finances may have been a little bit inhibited. But Mars escaping from that area, joining up with Aries, doesn't have the issues that Mercury and Venus had making their way through Aries, because those planets don't shine as well as Mars in your sign. So you have an instinct for the sign of Aries because your sign is exalted in Aries. In other words, the sun rises in the sign of Aries through the 2nd decan. So the opportunity for you, if there has been something that hasn't quite broken through at the pace and speed you would like, or it feels that you are being held back by someone's controlling behaviour or attitudes, or not wanting to flex into what you see as a really significant opportunity, or perhaps it's within yourself. Perhaps there's some patterns of behaviour or some fears or some roots of your attitudes which are somewhat self-limiting. You have a fantastic opportunity to really punch through those now. So Mars sextile Pluto for the first time in over 220 years between these two signs. The air of Aquarius, Pluto feeding into the furnace of the host Aries where Mars is, which is ruled by Mars. So if ever you really needed to get in touch with a rawer desire of what you truly want to do, and sometimes when we truly want to do something, we have to put to one side what other people might consider, those sensibilities which we'd rather keep on an even keel with. If there is something that you really have to make a big decision on and you really want to do it, do it. So Virgo, Mars has been moving through your 7th house, and that may have seen you put your foot down with a few people over the last 6 weeks, set your boundaries. Saturn's been helping you to do that over the last year as well. Maybe it's felt a bit cool at times, so therefore perhaps you've been able to express how you feel in a more voluble way since the 23rd of March. No bad thing. But how's that played out? If it's played out in a positive sense, Mars moving into Aries could lock you into a situation in a more passionate embrace, particularly if you have met someone during that time. If, however, there's a situation, and it could be a job or a lifestyle approach that is in a state of flux because of the energy in your 9th house, which has really been influential for you with Uranus for some years now, which has really been asking you some questions about your preference for having a role which is very stable, is very regular, gives you a structure in your life. That makes you feel good, and that's totally fine. But one way or another, you are being pushed to perhaps consider new approaches. And if something isn't working, Mars moving into your 8th house can give you a lot of push to actually do something quite dramatic and dynamic to bring something to a close. So this can be a bit of a cliff edge moment for you. If things are going along in your life pretty well, I think Mars moving into the 8th house can just up your desire, whether it's around intimacy, whether it is around money making. If things are not going so well, I think there could be a push to actually get in touch with what you really need. And because of the link to Pluto, that may mean a change around how you earn money, how you invest money, or how you're connected to someone else. And if you're the person that's finding all the solutions and they're being quite passive, Mars is going to see you being a bit more spiky over the next 6 weeks. And if you're single, certainly what's going to attract you to someone is if they've got a kind of magnetic energy which really turns your head. It's not just about pleasantries. You want something that's rawer. And that's going to make this transition a quite intense but exciting time for you. Libra, Mars moving through Pisces has been an interesting one for you because I feel it's on some levels giving you a little bit more vitality and robustness and a bit more stamina to deal with your life demands. But if the life demands are still being high, it probably hasn't completely solved the situation, particularly in week 2 when Mars connected with Saturn and maybe you didn't seem to have quite as much energy. And of course Neptune has been in your 6th house since 2/12, so it's made you very conscious of helping those perhaps who are less fortunate. Saturn moving into that area though over the last year may have made you much more aware of your limitations around your energy. Or are you doing so much for others but not really being valued or validated for that effort, but still expected to do it? That's possibly at work. That does seem to be a bit of a sort of a default with a lot of people in terms of employment these days, which is not good. But Mars being here may have made you just much more conscious of where you're helping others or where you're looking after yourself, your physical needs, your life structure. So Mars moving into Aries is in a way an interesting change because it could make you a bit firmer, a bit feistier about setting your boundaries. And perhaps there's been a bit of that over the last 6 weeks. But if you still don't feel heard, then you're going to find your voice in quite the way. But if you're single and you would like to bring someone into your world, or you'd like to be more active on the dating scene, the fact that Pluto links to Mars, so we've got the two rulers of the sign of Scorpio, passion, desire, collaborating in a very positive way. And because you're an air sign, Pluto being in the air sign of Aquarius, can see you expressing yourself with more confidence from this combination. What's not to like? Well, it's just that your ruler Venus at this very moment is being conflicted by Pluto. So if you're in a relationship and there are complexities and there are politics where it feels that someone's always leveraging something or wanting something for you, or is possessive or controlling, Mars is going to see you say no. However, if you're not in a complex situation, but you'd like to up your interaction with others and have a bit more of a playful time, by the 23rd of May, as Venus moves into your 9th house, the Sun will be in your 9th house. They're joined by Jupiter on the 26th. So that last phase of May can be really exciting for you. So I feel that this particular event can be triggering in a really positive and dynamic way. One, to get you much more interactive and less concerned with obligations, responsibilities, the daily, not particularly sexy stuff that Mars has been asking you to look at recently. And it can make you much more self-assured in the way you interact with others, which I think can be a real asset to you. But it also can see you push back where you do feel people are taking you for granted. I don't really want to use the word use, because I suppose at some level we all create situations where people might use us a little bit because we're too compliant, or we don't want to rock the boat, or we want to be a nice person. So in some ways, if you have been falling into that trap of being too much of a people pleaser, which can be a Libran trait, this is a great opportunity to push back on that. But it's also a great opportunity to tell people what you want. It's also a great opportunity to permeate some seriously potent magnetism if you are wanting to bring a spark into your love life. Scorpio, the fact that your ruler Mars moves into your 6th house and the other sign that it governs of Aries is truly significant because it links to Pluto, your modern ruler. But that's in your 4th house. So the combination of the two suggests if there are things you want to change around your home and the practical setup of your life, you can have a lot more energy in order to do it. But Mars moving through your 5th house was a great chance for you to feel better about your attractiveness. It's just that misery, Saturn, has been in that 5th house for the last year and may have seen you doubting yourself a little bit. But just be aware, you do have a cluster of energy in the 7th house of relating at the moment, including the charm of Venus. What's not to like? Well, of course, Venus is being conflicted by Pluto. So if there is politics around a relationship, whether it's a family member, a friendship, a colleague, the energy between Venus and Pluto can be quite tricky. But along comes Mars and wants to be a lot more robust. Mars in the 6th house is not so needing of attention. It can be sacrificing, can be motivated to help others. It's a great time to be thinking about your diet and your exercise routine and see how you could tweak things a little bit. But most of all, I think you want to get your home and routines working that much better, and you can have a lot of spark to do that from this point on. I think the gathering of energy that we had in Aries with Aries season gave you a taste of what you really want to embrace and evoke. But because you had Mars and Saturn slugging it out in your 4th house, home and emotional energies and realities may have made it difficult to move into that space, which is much more to do with enjoyment, joy, and self-expression. There'd be no such challenges with that with Mars moving into Aries, because of course the host is ruled by Mars and is a fire sign like yours. So your words, Pluto, and your thinking and your ideas, which are always important to you, you can be someone with huge knowledge, but that link to the Sun in your 5th house means that the way that you can come across now and over the next 6 weeks with that aspect right at the beginning is fantastic for you, Sagittarius. So I really love this, because Mars moving through the 4th house can be a tricky one because it's rather like Mars in Cancer in a natal chart or in the 4th house. It can be a bit inward looking. The water of Pisces diminutes the energy and thrust of Mars. But moving into Aries, I think you're going to find your physical vitality picks up. For sure, you do have a cluster of energy in your 6th house, so getting the practical side of your life working still, and that's where your ruler Jupiter is still going to be part of what the equation requires from you. But you're going to have a lot more enthusiasm, your natural personality, bubbliness, good humour, and larger than life character can really start to shine. And I think you're going to find by the end of May that you're in such a much more hopeful space than for some while. Capricorn, Mars moving into the 4th house is terrific if you're wanting to start tearing walls down, building an extension, ripping a bath out, redecorating, getting stuck into a garden that perhaps is really needing some energy. Mars in the 4th house is great for really getting that spark going. And of course with Pluto in your 2nd house, that's about your foundations. But Pluto can also be about rejuvenation. If there is something you want to do to your finances, the 2nd house, Mars can give you the determination to make some changes. Perhaps it's going to be working from home, for example. You still have that cluster of energy in house 5, very much to do with having fun, being sociable. It's possible you may invite people around to yours, and that can be a great way to get more of a connection to others. What's not to like? Well, it's just that Mars in the 4th house can be a bit prickly, a bit defensive, so just be conscious of that. But certainly the link to Pluto is very positive. The fact that Venus is in a less than positive link to Pluto at this time just suggests that when it comes to money and affection, proceed with a little bit of caution. But then if you hear something that doesn't quite feel right, just be aware that Mars in the 4th house can be a bit triggering. Aquarius, Mars moving into this area is terrific because you're a natural communicator being an air sign, so Mars moving into Aries gives you the fire, but for you it's house 3, which is very Gemini-like, so that's a lot more desire to interact, neighbours, siblings, in your local community, sharing ideas you've got. If you're really into tech, you can really sparkle over the next 6 weeks. And because Pluto is investing into the energy of Mars, what a combination. We're talking about willpower direct. So if you want to get more people to be aware of what you've got to offer in terms of your ideas and your personality, this really is a big opportunity. But of course Venus in your 4th house is squaring up with Pluto. If there are some politics around your home and emotional life, particularly around your desire to be a bit more individualistic, that could be a bit testing. But overall, I feel that Mars moving into your 3rd house is going to see the pace of life pick up considerably over the next 6 weeks. And I can assure you the last week of May can be a glittering time for you in lots of different ways. So Pisces, Mars moving out of your sign and into Aries, it's going to be interesting because Mars moving through your sign was encouraging you to strut your stuff in terms of your individuality, your unique ideas. But the problem is, of course, that Saturn's been in that area for the last year, really testing you to destruction about any weaknesses you may have in terms of your vitality, your physicality, your self-confidence. And the combination of the two, particularly in week 2 of April, and then in the last week with the combination with your co-ruler Neptune, if you have felt a little bit less than at optimum strength and wellness, that may have been something that's been a factor for you. You probably could have been a bit more inclined to have some headaches or frustrations. But what you've also probably been doing is started to manifest a plan that can be good for you in the future. Because Mars moving through the 1st house is the trigger point for getting something moving. Mars in the 2nd house is seeing how that's developing into something that is more tangible, like the foundation. And if you do need to do better with your finances, Your determination to do so is going to be incredibly strong over the following 6 weeks. Pluto in the 12th house suggests you may need to tap into your inner resources, past experiences or knowledge. Maybe there is some inner work that you still need to do in order to free you up in terms of reaping the benefits of your worthiness, whether it is in terms of money or just your sense of self-worth. But of course, Venus is clashing with Pluto on this event as well. It brings a bit of a complexity to it. It's basically saying that whatever people are saying to you or whoever you're chatting with, just best to be a little bit cautious of where they're coming from. Someone around you could be a little bit insincere. But in terms of your own personal mission and what you're trying to achieve, I think this is a big step forwards and can see you really assessing what you've manifested over the last 6 weeks, and at the end of the next 6 weeks you'll be in a much clearer position to look back and see what you started out on the 23rd of March and how it's evolved, and I think you're going to be really pleased. And if it is anything to do with a property matter, the last week, or a family or emotional matter, the last week of May can be particularly pleasing. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me for your Mars through Aries forecast. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I really would be grateful if you could help this channel grow. So please click that button. But for now, take care, good luck and goodbye.